Okay.
Right before
We'll call the meeting to order at 6:38.
6 to 6:30.
First thing we'll go over is agenda amendments.
I don't know if you wanted to add somewhere to the agenda, the request from Jay to consider his articles.
I wasn't sure if that'd be that or a correspondence.
Yes.
Oh, correspondence,
but he's
yeah.
not here, but we got it in
I got an email.
Absolutely.
So I was hearing no agenda amendments, we'll move on to correspondence. Not sure if everybody saw, but Jay requested that we revisit adopting his articles of agreement. We've actually sought legal counsel, and 2 or 3 opinions on our side disagree with Jay's legal counsel. And then there's another one we found that the statute doesn't match up because we're being forced to merge. We didn't vote to merge.
Well, you considered them already.
We did consider them already.
We warned them.
We've warned our articles. We did not warn his. He's requesting that we put his on with ours.
Can you do that if you've already warned articles?
No,
I don't believe we
it's
can.
too late.
So I mean, he requested. I'm bringing it up. So I feel that it's kind of a gone by issue, but I mean, legally, I don't think we could do it even if we hadn't warned him. So
Right, because according to our legal, we don't have the authority, according
Right.
to Board of Education. Yeah, or, I'm sorry, Department of Education.
So should we have a formal motion on that, or is?
I would say unless somebody makes a motion to adopt or approve
Right.
or accept or whatever, thank you very much.
Yeah, that's kind of, okay. So, public comments? Hearing none, move on to approval of meeting minutes from April 3rd, I believe.
Last week.
I would make the motion to approve minutes of April 3rd.
We don't have a quorum, do we? Oh, we do?
Yeah, we do.
Thank you, Devin.
That's
I'll
what
make
I
a
have, I
second,
guess.
Tamara.
Discussion?
I did have some comments. I'm trying to remember what it was.
Hi, Bob.
How's it going? Good. We just had a motion to approve April 3rd's minutes, and we're in discussion for Thank you. No problem. We did also discuss Jay's request for reconsidering his articles, but given the fact that we've already warned ours and our legal counsel says we can't do it, kind of thanks, but we can't.
I guess my comment was more for Don. He might not care, but the wording where it says, what is it? Don Collins explained a few years ago that MBU tried to cut here and there, that they're building a budget, and it made little to no impact tax rate, while our schools are careful with keeping their budget increases low. Other schools in other parts of the state are not being fiscally responsible. So our students are the ones. I don't think that's what he said. He said, not that they are not physically responsible, but he's just making an example. I don't know. It comes across kind of like he was saying that other schools are not being fiscally responsible. So
Maybe it's not being
Yeah, I think
as
he's-
fiscally responsible.
Well, and I do, Purette's not here, I do know she also listens to the recording, so, and tries to capture as much as, but I agree, his point was,
yes,
places like Burlington that have very large districts and,
Right.
you know, have recently had some big spending increases, and they certainly have reasons for doing that in their district, but the whole state pays for those.
Exactly. I think that was his point, and not
Yeah.
that it's easy to, you know, mask our spending with other larger, you know, districts at a statewide level. So he's not here to speak to that, whether he wanted to change or not, but I thought
Yeah.
that-
Do you want me to make a note to make any changes, or?
What do you do in a situation like that? That's a really good catch, though.
Yeah. Chances are Don didn't get a chance to read them.
We can make a note that we checked the recording or check with Don and see if that captures his.
Because I guess you don't really capture intent so much as you capture words.
Yeah, it's kind of tricky.
Yeah. That's hard.
What page was that, John? Just
It's
next to the last
page
It's the fourth page right here.
page 4
Don
out of 5.
Collins, midway, Don Collins explained.
So have her recheck that area. Okay, thank you.
We probably don't really need to approve them tonight.
Yeah, I think we almost have to table them till next time.
Are we meeting again?
Don't know.
Oh, okay.
That's true.
You do not have one scheduled between now and the new board taking over.
We probably will want to after we do an information meeting because we might get some good information, huh?
Nah, I'm thinking that, and you know, I don't know that we'll finish the budget work tonight.
And if we didn't meet, how would these minutes from tonight get approved?
That's a good question.
So you may want to approve them with that
But
question.
there's always going
Let's
to
do
be
that.
an end date.
Let's approve them with that question. Or you made the motion and I seconded it? Should we change the motion
Well, we
or
can.
amend it?
Do we want to table it? What do we decide?
That we're gonna, maybe if you amend your motion,
Oh,
then we could make it approved based on,
yeah, I would be happy with that.
I'm not asking,
Yeah.
I still haven't said what, based on what, I don't like, okay. Based on talking to Don first, I don't know.
Right, based on something, yeah. If everybody agrees, I'm happy with it. Is there-
Okay,
I don't think there's
so,
any strong feelings anyway about this. Maybe we stick with the original and just approve them. What do you think, John? You were,
Is there any
It
others?
seems to be the opposite of what he said. Is kind of
Right.
Yeah, I don't.
Then let's
It makes
just
him
wait.
seem like he's attacking other school
Yeah.
districts. and I
we don't want
to
that
come
because he
across that
wasn't.
way.
You're right.
So I think if maybe if we have in the motion that we reword that statement.
Right.
and-
Better reflect the intent of his message.
That's a good way of saying it. And I'll agree to that amendment.
All right, there we go.
all right, so are we done discussing April 3rd meeting minutes? All right, so, all those in favor of accepting April 3rd's meeting minutes as revised on that one section, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 6-0. On to fiscal. Review and discuss merged school district budget.
You know, can I add something here, just to say something here? Just, is that okay, Chris?
Yeah.
Okay, because I just want to be clear about something that I've been looking at these numbers, and I also did some research myself looking at past numbers. And I think there's a myth out there that Swanton is going to clearly benefit from the merger and that Franklin is going to clearly lose fiscally as well as in terms of control. And I would like to be really clear that the numbers don't support that at all. In fact, if anything, Swanton is paying more and our taxes are going up higher, Swantonsville, versus Franklin and Highgate. And I'm just saying that because I think it needs to be recognized and be clear about that, because I think there is this mythology that Swanton's the winner. The fact is, when you look at the cost per pupils, you know, the numbers, and I'm sure Laura can go into this a lot better, but I'm partly responsible for that myth because when we did the Act 46 calculations, the numbers were a little different. The numbers did show that Franklin taxes would be higher and Swanton would be less. However, I think the number of students that have come into Swanton versus the number of students that are leaving other places and the numbers themselves have made things a little different. I don't know what totally caused it, but if you look in the annual reports now versus the annual reports we used back then, things have really changed. And as we'll see tonight, Swanton will bear the highest fiscal change.
Could you point out which row you're talking about? Are you talking about the
Which row?
tax rate? Are you referring to the sheet here?
Yeah, and also my own calculations that I did.
Okay, it's just it'd be good if you could point out specific numbers
Okay.
so that I can follow you.
Some data for it.
Yeah. Well,
Okay, I would like you to, trying to figure out which is going to be the easiest for you to see.
It's the spending per equalized pupil that she's talking about and the impact to the tax rate. So if we're looking at,
is it in front of me though? Is it in one of the
well,
sheets?
she's going back farther years,
Yeah.
but I can
Okay.
point the same thing out to
But
you.
even just 1 year shows it.
Spending per equalized pupils right there,
Yeah.
so whether,
So this, and I was gonna go through this.
If you
after we
would,
talk
thank
about-
you.
Do you wanna talk about the budget first and then go to tax rate, or do you wanna do this now?
The reason I brought it up first is because I think last time we got kind of involved in the numbers themselves as opposed to the impact. You know, I'm not even sure all of us made it to the last page of the yellow handout. And so I thought maybe it would be a good place to start with the big picture tonight. And thank you for this sheet of paper.
So basically, this walks you through the current year only tax rate calculation in the first several columns, taking into account Franklin and then the MVU portion of Franklin, and then the same for Highgate and Swanton, and then the total MVU, total Franklin Northwest as it is this year, and then we're looking at the merge on the far right. So on the third line, we're looking at your ed spending increase, the 2.6 million over there in the variance column. Your equalized pupils cumulatively are down 5.65 from last year. But some of what Terry's speaking to is that if you look at them in isolation, Highgate is actually decreasing 20 equalized pupils from last year. Franklin's down, I think, 3.5 or something like that. And Swanton's actually increasing 20. And so as we move through this calculation, we'll talk more about how, what that does. So the spending per equalized pupil, if you see that line right in the middle, John, you can follow that along from the MVU and both the local school districts. And then if you look at the total, it's 13,702, and then next year estimated with this version of the budget to be at 15,156. Part of what Terry's talking about is looking at the historical tax rate or spending per equalized pupil. And also the spending per equalized pupil, if we were to take these numbers and break them apart and divide by the number of equalized pupils, their net ed spending impact would actually be much more significant on their own because of their significant losses. So Highgate losing 20 kids and clearly will have a detrimental impact to their spending. When you merge them together, we're kind of mitigating that a little bit.
So just to rephrase what you're saying is that if you were to take these numbers and do a local budget for Franklin, the loss of equalized pupils would result in them having a higher tax rate on their own.
Right now I'm talking, but I'm talking about net ed spending per equalized pupil right now.
Yeah, because that's
But
step
yes.
one, the
But
net
yeah.
ed spending.
Noting that you have to look at both sides of that equation. So if you just look at Franklin without Franklin's portion of MVU, that might not be the case. But if you look at the total population, which is 100% of the students, absolutely yes. But even the spending per equalized pupil, even at the local level, you can see. So then we're looking at the property yield below that. As you can see, it's projected to go up $446 from last year. That helps your tax rate. That actually, in this case, it's about 6 cents that it's helping you. So the increase on your tax rate would be 6 cents more if that yield was not going up that $400. That's to be determined, but that's the best number we're told to use right now from the Agency of Ed. So then we're just looking at your equalized homestead tax rate, which is not taking the CLA into account, just things I've already talked about, would be $1.42, and that's again the local and MVU. Then we take into account the common level of appraisal, which with this merged budget is basically the only variable that from town to town.
Right.
And so everyone's common level of appraisal is going down, as you can see. Highgate, again, unfortunately, seeing the most significant decrease in their CLA, 2%. But Swanton seeing a decrease of 1.44%, and Franklin seeing a decrease of 1.31. I can tell you in that case, the impact to your tax rate is about 1.8 cents for Franklin, 2.5 cents for Highgate, and 1.9 cents for Swanton. So that's just if we look at just the CLA impact. So if we take those CLAs into account with the equalized tax rate on the next line, you're looking at $1.40 and some change for Franklin, $1.33 for Highgate, and $1.38 for Swanton. It's an increase of 9.3 cents for Franklin, 8.5 cents for Highgate, and 10.5 cents for Swanton. 1 cent on the tax rate right now is about 100 in this scenario is about $192,000. That's in the notes below. I just thought that was good information for you to have. I already talked about the decrease in equalized pupils, common level appraisal, yield. Some of the things that are impacting the increase to your net ed spending, the 2.6 million is, the step increase for teachers. Health insurance increase of 11.8% has a pretty big impact. We now will have 2 bond payments that we previously did not have portions or all of. So MVU currently has an interest payment on their bond, but they will be adding in the principal payment for the second year. And then the new Highgate bond, that's about $200,000 worth of new costs right there. And then there's other general purpose proposed line increases to plant, capital projects, repair and maintenance, equipment, professional development, training, supplies, all the ones that we showed you in that sheet last time with what people have added in their individual budgets. And then I just wanted to mention again that losing Sheldon out of our scenario clearly has an impact when we start dividing up costs. So it's not always dollar for dollar with that change.
So, John, you were asking me about the, just specifically looking at 2019, the first columns, the ones in white showing last year's homestead tax rate for the various towns, Franklin, Highgate, and Swanton. Do you see what I'm talking about there?
Yep.
And then you look in the blue and it tells you what it's going to be this year and the variance. My point here is that just looking at those facts, Swanton's will go up the most. But looking at the fact that if we were projecting to 2020 without this kind of projection, if we were doing what other people had said, what is our equalized pupil? We went up 20 people, so our equalized pupil, taken into that, our tax rate would have gone down from 1.277. So it's not just going up almost 11 cents, it's going up more than that when you give the fact that we would have gone down. So I don't know what that net would be, but probably 1 or 2%, 1 or 2.
Yeah, a gain of 20 plus equalized pupils and the change in the yield of $400 and something is substantial in Swanton. And then, conversely, Highgate's going in the opposite direction of their equalized pupils. So Highgate on their own as a standalone district, I looked at it yesterday or the day before, actually would have a higher tax rate increase if they were in isolation and proposing a local budget than they would in this scenario. And Franklin would be the same if you take the high school into account.
It kind of flips all the arguments over, doesn't it?
Well, and the hope in a merged budget is that it is going to smooth those things out, so that we all, as Swanton is hopefully increasing its population and equalized peoples, that as, you know, we're not standalone communities where we're subject to the population changes. You know, and as you all know, in Franklin, you had that bad year that was what got reported in all of the state secretaries' reports and so forth. That's the one they kept pointing to, but, you know, and then you move back up again. So this is hopefully going to smooth out those peaks and valleys a bit, so that we are all helping each other and be a more stable system for taxpayers in our 3 towns. In some years, it probably would change from year to year. But
You shouldn't have the giant peaks and valleys.
right,
Sometimes you just have the perfect storm. If the CLA goes down, you drop a couple equalized pupils, and the yield maybe goes down. Your spending could go down, your tax rate's still going up. So,
Well, I don't think Swanton has protested as much as other towns. So I just wonder how that is coming across to you all, because I don't know if this is new news for you. It is new news for me.
Yeah,
I don't know
that's
if
going by the numbers that you had
years ago.
drafted up on and took that as
I'd go back, I swear, those were right. I would go back and look at them.
we talked about the fact that, and it's the same thing that we do. We do the best with the information we have at that point in time. We didn't have equalized pupil numbers at that time. It's a 2-year average. You know, we're basing on enrollment what we think it's going to be or what it's been historically. There's so many things that can change. The yield changes. I mean, so you project and you do the best you can.
I mean, it's nice to see that that's leveled out since the data was originally put together. I don't think it maybe changes anyone's mind in terms of whether they're pro or anti the statewide plan, but you know, this does give us new information, and it's I guess reassuring for some of the towns that did think that they were giving up a lot financially to see that perhaps we are all sharing equally in the cost of this.
Or maybe a little more than equally.
I'm sorry.
A little more. We'll have different. You know, it'll go each way. You know, it'll average out the long term.
Do you think?
I do.
But when you ran your numbers, it was the complete opposite.
Yes.
That was 2 years ago.
We'll
It
We'll
will.
eventually have to.
we'll all move up and down.
Part of that was
50
because
years.
Swanton wasn't growing and Swanton is growing now.
Yeah,
I think that's what the
But 2
numbers
years
were.
from now, it could flip and Swanton could stop growing and Highgate could start growing. Or we all could shrink, or we could all grow.
I hope that's the case. I hope that Franklin grows and Highgate grows. I mean, I hope that it doesn't stagnate and that we still have things going well. I just know Swanton's right on the interstate, and that's why the CLA is different too. It all comes into growth, and CLA goes to, I mean, your property gets worth more, and so your CLA goes, all that kind of stuff. You know what? I'm glad to hear you said it, because I truly don't think it'll. I don't think Swanton. I think a lot more people were on the wave that let's go along with what the state says. I don't think we're going to have people in Swanton saying, no, we don't want it now, because we know our taxes are not only going up 11 cents, but more than that because we were keeping our budgets down. The other thing with those numbers is that I think some of the towns really put off repair work and maintenance and different things like that. So the numbers we were using, Swanton was spending more. And then it stopped, and so I think all those numbers we were using, there was a different thing. I personally am just being like this because for a while there, we were thinking that Swanton was taking advantage of everyone, and it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And so I wanted to spend tonight saying, you know what, you guys, it wasn't because we thought we were making out that we were doing this. We were doing it because we thought that it was the best way to move forward, given the fact that we didn't really have a choice.
It's understandable, and I hope no one else came across as suggesting that you were trying to get away with something, or anyone from Swanton was trying to get away with something. That was not the intention of those of us who spoke out against the merger situation. It was simply the math at the time, and looking at the tax rates in our towns and saying it's a big increase based on the math, the numbers we had at the time. This places us all on a much more level spot than where we were with those numbers, and so that's reassuring, and I do hope that that's not the perception out there that Franklin and Highgate were blaming Swanton for it. We know that the statewide plan did not come from the Swanton residents. We were
thinking
all
that
in that together.
That Swanton was going to feel no pain, you know.
Well, I kind of want to reiterate that too, because I know from the people I've talked with in Highgate, it wasn't that we were blaming Swanton for this. We were very upset with how the state has been handling this. And that's the biggest crux. I mean, all the work you guys put into that AGS that didn't even get read. I mean, that's where we had a lot of issues.
Thank you. And I guess that is true. I don't think people blame Swanton because we obviously didn't do that. But I think people thought, well, of course Swanton shouldn't care because they're going to make out fine. So of course Swanton shouldn't be upset. So of course Swanton wants to move forward. And there was more to it than Swanton wanting to move forward because we thought we were saving money.
But even when you guys had a vote, you still voted not to merge. So,
Well,
I mean,
it wasn't the same
I was
kind
never,
of-
it may not have been the same unanimous as the other towns, but I never felt that it was Swanton's fault or we thought Swanton was getting away with anything. We just didn't like the way the state's handling it. That was my biggest issue.
And you keep saying that in the past tense.
But yeah, exactly.
Still don't like how the state's
Yeah,
handling it.
exactly.
Present tense.
Agreed.
He's right.
So I guess one of the things that Laura and Becky and I talked about today is wanting some direction from the boards. I know last time, the first time we saw everything together, today, we still have things broken out by town. That's not necessarily how it will go to the new board, but we wanted to do it step by step. This time things, and now I'm looking at the long letter side. We've moved things so that they're on the same, and I say we, like I did it. Laura and Becky did all this work. Moved everything so that they're in the same function and object codes for the most part.
Laura and Becky, I would like to talk to them about this,
Yeah, absolutely.
if you don't mind. I've talked to Laura about this, and she brought some things to my attention. I'm sorry, I've had an ear infection, and
Yeah, you were sick last
I
time.
had a month. I'm sorry, I can only hear only one side. But Laura, you were great at sending stuff back to me. Should we wait until the stuff is moved?
Most of it has been moved, so I can hit some
Okay.
highlights in this
Okay.
draft if
Okay.
you'd like.
Okay.
So most of your questions were about realigning things that didn't match up. So if something was
To
in
me,
a,
they didn't match up.
well,
but
they didn't.
I could have been wrong.
No, they didn't.
Okay.
And we knew that, but what we were trying to do in draft one was show you exactly what you had seen, or the
Okay.
closest thing to it, knowing
That's
that.
my thing.
Yeah.
So,
We tried to align like expenses in the same function and object code in
Yeah.
all the schools. Is it
Yeah.
completely fixed? Probably not. I'm sure we're missing things because some things were merged together. You had to pull out parts of them and add
that's
them
all
to other
right.
lines.
I offered to help. So I will.
We might be at the point where we're almost ready to take it.
I will do that. I will.
But things, for instance, like the school-based clinicians, it's a contracted service
Yeah.
through NCSS. Most of our schools have them. Some were in different places. They might have been in instructional, they might have been in student management. Now they're all in student management.
Okay.
Tech integrationist positions, one was an instructional for MVU, everywhere else they were in technology. So we put them all in technology. So any of those changes, Becky put a note in the column there to say, X is now over here. So hopefully that helps. There should be a note for anything that we move, but most of your questions were around,
Yeah.
why don't I see this for Highgate? How come Highgate only sees this? Most of that was just because it wasn't lining up perfectly with other schools. And that's just because the schools, it's hard to change a budget at a local level. It causes alarm where maybe there shouldn't be because they're like, well, how come I have this giant jump on this line? It's going way down on this
Right.
line. It's just a shift, but sometimes we choose not to.
I just want to be in the same
Yeah.
pocket as everybody else.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
so.
And to be honest, we're not completely.
Well, and
But we're going to keep working on it. And,
Okay, good.
And part
That's
of
great.
I think what the new board would do was look at maybe inequities or differences and talk about them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Sure.
We also removed about $11,000 from the last draft. It was we had too much money in here for ESL services. We had some portions of it in duplicate places. And so we think we've cleaned that up now. We also added in a new plowing expense. We had thought that the board was thinking about for Franklin and Highgate, since you currently receive those services at no charge from the town, adding in something. So we just basically took Swanton's contracted amount and took a portion of that based on what we thought it might be, just a ballpark. We also consolidated repair and maintenance lines. It just happened to be one of those objects, that they're your 430 lines, object codes on the side, under plant. So there was a bunch of them, so we just merged them together for ease of
Laura, you do a
reviewing.
great job. I appreciate it, and I was just asking.
Yeah,
That's all.
and if you want to go through your questions, that's fine too. That's really all
No.
we've done since the last draft, so.
I don't have to unless you want me to.
No, and the board always loves it when they're specialists.
I'm not a specialist.
You've got it, yeah.
But we work well together.
So other than that, we put in a variance column, put draft 2 on it. No.
Yeah. Thanks, Laura.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you did the variance from last draft, highlighted too, that's good.
Yeah.
I guess we're looking, like Julie had said, for direction on any next steps, or looking for questions, ideas about how you want to see it presented.
I doubt it. I guess there's a couple of steps we're looking for here, right? We're looking for approval, or are we ready to approve that we're going to, suggest that we send this on to the initial board for them to adopt or not adopt?
It's all drafts.
It's all, but we would.
Well, you could accept it as you're going to propose it, like you're saying, to the new temporary.
Right. Like, we don't make the decision.
The initial board.
The initial board does.
Initial, there you go.
Or do we want to keep looking at the numbers? Or, one of the things I wondered, I know that people had said last meeting, and also one of this articles about breaking things down for what the tax would have been if they weren't merged, or what the budget would be if they were merged. Would it help get budget across if you had the equalized pupil cost for, let's say, Highgate, if we hadn't merged? What would their cost be going forward? It would be.
Is that confusing or helpful?
That's what I'm wondering.
I know, it
Well, it would
really is
certainly get
about
our budget.
how we want to.
I think it would get our budget
Yeah.
passed. That's where I'm coming from. I think it would get the budget passed. And that's probably the next board's
But you always
job.
I think we're way ahead of that.
What's that? Getting our budget passed?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Megan, one. I'd like to.
Megan?
So I think at the last meeting, John, you had mentioned sort of breaking it down. Is that something we can do at the informational meeting and not, as Julie said, potentially confused?
Oh, I didn't mean I wouldn't do it on the ballot. I meant information.
Oh.
I meant information.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you meant by, oh no, that wouldn't be even legal. It wouldn't even be legal to do it on the information, on the ballot.
One bottom line number and
Yeah.
Well, see, I
Pull the
was,
reins.
No, I did not mean on the ballot.
I was like, pull the reins.
No, I meant informationally to get it passed, but that probably is the next board's
well,
job.
they'll have time to talk about marketing the budget. I think,
Days and days.
days and days.
Days.
I think really what we have before us for timeline, just to focus on that, the thing that keeps me up at night, is we have until, say, May 1st, when the new board meets, to work on this budget and pass it off to them. And obviously, we want it as thoroughly done, or as good a feeling as we have, so that they don't have to take weeks. Because if they take weeks, then at the end of June, before we can have a vote. If they get the budget on May 1st and say, this is fabulous, we love it, we're adopting this tonight, and do a warning, then the vote is June 4th. So obviously, that's not pinning people down. That new board should take the time that they need. But the more preparation that this board is able to put into it, many people here are running for that board. We have the better. is really what I'm stumbling my way through that.
Right, if it's the same people involved, then we might as well get as much work done now as make it easy for the next step.
And after they adopt it, then they can talk about what's the best way to get the message out. Because that's going to be a very important.
Well, I have to say, I don't really know as far as looking at this, since it is a budget that we all put, each one individually, town put together, it's really hard for me to be able to know. Like, we don't have any history other than what the board tells us, the towns tell us, that everybody's doing their best to keep it as tight as possible. So it's almost like, what else do we need to do to clean it up for the next board? Are there any red flags or anything that stands out to anybody?
Yeah, I'm kind of highlighting some things right now. I guess it's part of just consolidating it. Page 3, where we have the interscholastic curriculars, is it just MBU that's applicable for? I mean, there's some, some of the other schools have.
Very, very minimal.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I see they've got 5,000 and 7,000 for their activities director.
Yeah, there's some of them use student activity money and fundraising to pay for things like uniforms, and it's minimal, other than paying a small amount to an AD or some refs.
Okay.
It's not a high school. It's very typical, that.
Yeah, I just thought that they'd probably have some other line items for at least some of these items, but I guess if it's all based on people, wages, health insurance.
The only one that I'm thinking of, actually, John, I think I might have missed one. Instructional programs, supplies in Swanton, they may have like $2,000 in their supply line for uniforms, and they're the only one.
So is that sitting somewhere else right now?
It's probably in the supply, in the supply line. It's one of those ones that's like inside another line, so I'll have to break it out, but I think that's the only one.
Where was that? I'm sorry, the instructional
Actually, I'm saying supply line, but I'm looking at equipment, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So it's on the back page of page 1, the back second side.
So page 2?
Yeah, in instructional programs equipment, the 730 line, I think there's a very small amount in Swanton that might be
I see what you're saying.
athletic equipment.
Oh, yeah, because it's
But it's minimal,
21,500.
But MBU has to have a athletic trainer on site all the time.
No, I wasn't necessarily questioning that MBU didn't belong there. I was just questioning whether the other towns should have more items in that bucket.
Right.
And
I'm
then,
sure they would like to.
Well, I mean, now's the time to make it as transparent as possible so that people can see them. That's all.
So Laura, basically you're still reclassing things to different accounts.
I think we did most of them,
changes.
but there's going to be.
I got them.
Yeah, and as we work through this new chart of accounts that's coming out, we're going to have to move things all over too and consolidate things. It's just
Been there,
we'll be
done
forced to, but that won't be for another almost a year probably.
Yeah.
Now, in the merged districts, will all paras move to the union contract?
It'll just be a Missisquoi Valley School District contract for every employee.
Does that?
Pairs would be union for Franklin, though, is what he's asking.
Are there additional costs built in the year we need them?
Some things you want to talk about in the executive session, but one of the tasks of the new board will be to come to agreement with the association over folks that are union in some districts and non-union in others.
Right, okay. Got it.
So we may not have enough information to know if that affects the dollars at this
Or
point.
we may need to go into executive session tonight.
We may, I think that's probably one of those things that I'm finding for executive session.
And it wouldn't just be paras either, because MBU actually has several other groups of people in the support staff agreement that could be impacted there too. Potentially.
And then like page 4, the speech and audiology services, I mean, what stands out there's only one number in that entire block. 6,000 for purchase services for Highgate, so is that?
That's what I brought up.
They have,
Right?
I believe Highgate has their own employee for that.
Why that one?
That's
One.
purchase services.
That's
The other
purchase
school.
services though.
No, they have a, oh, okay.
Yeah.
All speech and language pathology professionals and would be SU employees. If there was a support staff
Yeah.
person, that might be local.
And we moved, there was, in your last draft, there was a Paraline partially charged there.
Okay.
And we just neglected to move purchase services, I think.
My question
It'll just be moved over to special ed.
So it's gonna
I
get
think
moved
that
to
asked me
added.
and I probably didn't answer her that also would go with the Paraline.
It's gonna move.
They moved it, but they didn't use
Okay,
this.
so that could take care of
They
it.
moved the 6,000.
Yeah, it's when you look at it and there's something just sort of
Well,
floating
yeah,
on
that, I mean,
So this is-
obviously,
catches your eye.
that's what I'm doing right now, is if
Exactly.
I was
6,000.
reviewing this, not knowing anything, these are the questions that, you
Yeah.
know,
One wasn't moved.
I don't.
Unfortunately, we're looking
Okay.
much deeper than that number sticking out, so then we missed the number sticking out.
Okay. So you're gonna move that number?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Forest the trees kind of thing.
yeah.
That's right.
It's a bit of a Rubik's Cube trying to do this, to be honest with you.
You're not.
If no
I'm
one
just
has any
curious.
other comments, I'll keep going.
I have a comment, actually. I'll wait for after you.
Page 5, the professional development.
That's where I was.
So one thing that stands out, and I'm looking at, theoretically, you've got in order Franklin, Highgate, Swanton, MVU. We've got 26,500 for conferences workshop for Highgate, and the other ones are quite small for the other schools. So the total kind of skews that 56,500 for Highgate.
Highgate had,
I know they added some professional development. so
they
you could
did, it
bring
was
someone
specific for
in-house.
something that Pat wanted to do. Go back, I'm just gonna pull out my paper copy because it's easier.
A lot of our PD where we bring people in come in through our consolidated federal grants. And I think he was feeling he had something, I know he was feeling he had something that would be above and beyond that. And I'm not sure whether that was the math work or whether that was
The math PD for their new curriculum that they have. RP, here. Restorative practices, maybe?
restorative practices was the other thing I was thinking.
And they added some for literacy, and they also, they're launching a makerspace, and there's $2,000 in there for PD around the makerspace technology.
Okay.
Several schools.
Well, a lot of that's because we just adopted a new math program, right?
Yeah, that was the first one.
Yeah,
Yep,
okay.
yep. Several schools, I think as you can see on probably this little cheat sheet I gave last time, increased their professional development lines. Most of our schools do not budget for what they actually could be responsible for if everyone in the union took advantage of what they could. We try to estimate what we think the use is gonna be, but it's caught us some years if people are taking more than what we anticipated. And they can, because it's in their bargaining agreement.
Yeah.
Is that math program that's being put in Highgate consistent with what's in place in Swanton and Franklin?
It's actually the one Swanton had. They were having so much success with it. The program we had started 2 years ago, we weren't having success with. So we, look to our neighbors.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. That's worth an investment if that's because Swanton test scores have been going up, so.
And ours went up this year
With the new program or with the old one?
with a new program.
Awesome. That's good.
How does that compare to the program that Franklin is using?
That I'm not sure.
Maybe turn to Julie.
Yeah.
I don't know if they use a particular program. They're using particular practices like number talks, and they've done math studio and they've done math menu. But I get back to it.
That's probably where COSHA comes in terms
Yeah.
of standardizing across the schools. I think if we're getting better results for our kids, then this is a great place to spend some extra money.
Yeah, I agree.
right.
I agree.
Terry, did you have a question this time?
That was that one.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
One thing I picked up on looking at this yellow copy over the last week, there's two different sections that, I don't want to pick on Swanton, but they're higher than the others, health services and the library services. And in both those departments, they're higher than MVU.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering if through this consolidation, is that something that we're going to be able to maybe share? Like Franklin, for example, has a part-time nurse, and I think it's a part-time librarian as well. in Swanton.
Dennis, where is it? Sorry.
On page 3 and on page 5 of the yellow copy.
Page 5 of the yellow and page 3 of this one?
Yeah, the yellow. Just, and I think the numbers didn't change much
No,
in
they
draft 2,
didn't.
so I
Okay.
could be using draft 2 as a reference.
That was my next comment.
I know, I'm not saying all of this is because of this, but having 2 buildings and because of the grades in the buildings, I believe there are some standards around having nurses and then the library is operating in 2 different buildings as well.
Where's the library
Impact
services
costs.
on the
Okay.
right?
I don't have to go look up this.
So-
I
so-
think it's page 3,
Terry.
Terry.
On the white.
Well, yeah.
If you look at, like, for instance, the library services, page 6
Yeah.
on the white.
On the white, okay.
Yeah, so like, Swanton, if you just look at the bottom line without rolling up and figure where it's coming from, 191,000 versus MVU 158, so
Gotcha.
Swanton is higher than MVU.
Yeah,
which,
that is a
again,
lot.
And
from
per-
that perspective, is like, why is that
I
the
just
case?
couldn't find it
Right.
on the white and yellow.
Per pupil, it makes it look like a big number because I know there's a few more here at MVU than Swanton.
I can tell you they have 2
Is that
nurses'
added line?
office that are staffed and they have 2 libraries that
Wait a
are
second.
staffed most of the time.
This
So that would explain it.
something's wrong here. The subtotal with library services on Swanton, that number adding up to 191,000?
It's continued from the front page.
Yeah, the other,
Yeah,
the other
yeah.
side.
Yeah.
Because I was
For
going
the
to say,
wages
what?
And it's all because there's two.
Yeah, and that does look like where it's coming from. You've got wages, support staff, 57,000,
There it is.
double MVUs.
That's 100 and,
Health insurance,
Right.
almost triple, or more than triple.
Well, that's it. The employees are what?
Exactly, it's-
The costs follow the employees for sure.
Swanton has library assistants or support staff in both buildings.
that's $30,000 difference.
And
Okay,
then they also have a full-time professional librarian,
just one.
one. Yeah. But they have 2 nurses, one in each building.
2 nurses.
Well, they also have 3 pre-K in the Mary Babcock building. They have pre-K through 2nd grade, so they also have 3 pre-K classes
Okay.
as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is all good information to know because,
Yeah. Yeah.
we're just trying to figure out how the other schools operate.
Yeah. And how many kids are there, like in the Mary Babcock?
I don't know per building. I can actually
I'm
look
trying to
at
think
one
with
of
the
these.
kids. There's probably, I think there's like, that's what I was thinking, a little over 250, almost 300.
Pre-K, all the pre-Ks.
With the-
Okay.
with
It
the
might
pre-
be, I don't know.
It's somewhere between 250 and 300 probably, right?
I will look at one of Dina's board reports.
Board
to get some
reports, yeah.
numbers.
I can't get it to open, I'm not sure.
I wish I'm sorry. I don't
One
know.
thing that's interesting to me, I guess, is there used to be a much wider discrepancy between the enrollment in Swanton and the enrollment at MVU. I mean, obviously, there are a couple, I'm trying to get the numbers, but MVU used to have well over 1,000. It used to be,
1,200, yeah.
1,200. Now they're in the 800s.
Yeah.
And with Swanton's enrollment has been going up and up, they're almost over 600 again. So they're closer than we might think in size. Thank you. I don't know why I think that. 838 for MVU, October 1 numbers for this year, and Swanton was at 611. So
It's pretty good knowing those numbers. That was pretty good. You knew those numbers.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, it's a spreadsheet. I don't have very many numbers in my head. I'm not gonna yeah, that's great. I'll out myself. But it used to be a much more significant difference. MVU used to be double the size of Swanton, and it's not anymore.
Well, 6 years from now,
Yeah, that's gonna
Yeah.
flow.
Something should change.
that's what we
If the other towns go up too.
Yep. So pre-K, just the 4-year-olds because it's 3-year-olds who attend for tuition. Pre-K through second grade is $299, and the total pre-K 6 is $618.
But 300 then, basically, in that one
Basically
building.
about 300 in each building. A little over in Central.
What are the, while we're talking numbers, what are the total numbers? So we know we're like 600 something at MVU. How many do we have at Franklin Highgate?
Highgate, we're just under 300 now, 280, I think.
That helps to
You were
know.
304 October 1, which is
We're
now
304. Yeah, we
Yeah.
dropped to 280 next year.
We have
280 next year.
17.
600 in Swanton.
142 with pre-K.
Oh, with pre-K.
Yeah, you're up.
300 in Highgate.
142.
That's at 20 child swing.
835 at MVU. Franklin must be
Does
still about
Highgate's 280
120.
count the pre-K?
Well, no, you just had that.
I believe it does.
Last year you went down almost.
I believe it does.
I mean, that's a huge difference, really.
Franklin's still about 125 or
No, 142, we just did.
Oh, I'm sorry.
142 as October 1 numbers, yeah.
Wow.
It's good to know. I mean,
And that's
that,
pre-K,
That's,
including pre-K.
We're doing
which
I
is
was gonna say, that's more than they've ever had, but
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, I need more kids.
Include.
yeah, they're counting that.
yeah.
They're great. Are there any pre-K numbers in the MVU number?
Nice if you could find them.
Not a lot of 3 and 4-year-olds.
I know they're looking for more space to serve kids if you guys are offering it.
I thought I was gonna catch somebody on that.
Jenny, no.
He was on it. All right. Yeah, other than those categories that were, just seemed a little out of whack, the numbers, I think like Terry said, it was like, you know, I just have to believe that Franklin, Highgate, and Swanton are doing as good a job as we are here at MVU as far as putting our budgets together, so I gotta believe they're all good numbers.
Page 6 under technology services. Swanton has, I'm assuming people, but there's no health insurance numbers.
Ah,
Same thing
interesting.
for Franklin. Are those somewhere else, or what's the
Do we
reason? for
share?
that?
Sorry, say that again. They have more salaries, but not as much health insurance.
Well, 0.
What page were you on?
They
Page
may or
6,
may not
technology
take health
services.
insurance.
Okay. I think that's mostly what it is.
The technology services?
What was the answer? I didn't hear it.
Maybe
I'm
they're
looking.
not.
She's
I
like-
have to. We can't keep all the individual notes on there, so I'm just gonna. Look
She's
at
saying they
mine.
may or may not take it.
Yeah, they don't.
Yeah,
they
well,
don't
it could be the
participate,
case.
Yeah.
I just wanted to
Yeah,
double check.
they could, and then that would go up 20,000 or 40,000.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I'm just asking questions.
No, it's
It's
always.
not that we don't offer.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, like,
And that's-
Franklin, maybe that's like a part-time, so there's nothing there, or I don't know.
Franklin's technology is actually a support staff.
Right,
person.
or if it's
Yeah.
support staff, we're just contracted out and there's no, that makes sense, but considering that's,
It is kind of
I'm
20
guessing
so much.
Swanton has full-time people.
They do. They have a tech integrationist and a like a tech coordinator, I guess you would call them.
Apparently don't take health insurance.
And the only reason I said that about health insurance is because I actually just like to bring up that we don't budget for any extra health insurance, but there's a lot more people that are offered that don't currently take it, and that's always the dice that we roll, right? Because that's a very expensive cost. I know it's hitting you guys in the last couple of years significantly. So.
Some of these,
Unfortunately, it's a line item you can't change.
right.
Really?
No, but sometimes we don't budget for, we only budget for actuals at that point in time, and so if
Right,
Highgate had
yeah.
3 new people jump
I
on health
agree.
insurance, you're
Yeah.
talking $60,000, I mean, and
Yes.
there's nothing we can do about that to control
Right.
it, you're right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is what it
Nothing
is.
we would want to do. Okay.
Right. No.
Under the same section, equipment lease, so, we got Highgate and MVU has computers, or at least it says computers. Are the other two towns on a different rotation, or? there's no-
Franklin, I don't think is currently paying on their lease.
Okay.
They might be in between years, and Swanton will be probably engaging in a lease. I don't know exactly when. Right now, it's in an equipment line and not a lease line. They used to use Medicaid money. It was allowable for them the last several years, and they would just buy them outright directly in the beginning of the year. But that we're now not doing that anymore. We've repurposed that. So they had to increase their equipment line. they may go into a lease instead, but I don't think it's been decided yet. I know the new tech director, Robert Jarvis, is looking at maybe we'll do one lease this year and try to get reduced rates. And there's also a buyer's group out right now that through the state that just offered us really good rates. So
that's kind of what I was thinking, is that if they're on different cycles or different programs, we should try and pool that all together and do something better.
Yeah, those discussions started about 2 or 3 months ago.
Yeah, and then obviously make sure everyone's getting good equipment so that we don't have schools behind others.
Yeah. There also was discussion around like consistency in equipment across schools, not necessarily having to have the same Chromebooks for all kids, but for instance, we had some schools that lost some tech support this year, and it'd be nice if the other people could go in and maybe help out from another school if they're needed, even for a week, and just be able to pick up those same 3 devices. So I know Robert's really talking a lot about that. When he's not working on SLPS, I just have to say.
I'm wondering if we want to go into executive session to talk about some of the, have we gone through enough of line items that we're ready to talk about some of the salaries and things like that we need to go into executive session for, or are there more?
No, I was just waiting to see if John was done.
I can keep going. Did we reallocate all the stipends for the new board so that they're not, okay. Where's that, which section is that?
Board of Education, page was 20.
I was looking at Board of Education, but
It's page 6.
Starts on 6.
6.
Wages.
Oh, there it is. Top of, or bottom 6.
We just had that panic moment with our spreadsheet again, all the references, and then they just randomly, the numbers came back again. I was telling John we're having a problem with our spreadsheet the other day. Just reference and all of our formulas are gone, then they reappear. It's a lot of work.
That's somebody playing with you. That's
Oh my God, jump out the window.
Good thing it's a 1 floor.
God bless you.
Well, given our discussion on this, are we ready to have a finding for executive session to discuss some of the contract details?
I'll make a finding if we go into executive session.
Second that.
All those in favor to go into executive session where premature public knowledge would clearly place the board and other parties at a distinct disadvantage, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I can go to it.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, please.
It's not just them.
And who are we?
What if Swanton wants to warn their budget? What if Highgate wants to warn their budget, just in case it doesn't pass? Just in case the lawsuit, I mean, that's why you guys did it, right?
Yeah, we said from the beginning we're doing the parallel tracks, and we want to make sure we have a budget in place if something happens and the merger doesn't occur, and if the legislature does not give us that backup budget plan, we want to have something in place. And so,
And I think Swanton will probably will want to do that too this week. I don't know if that's going to cause problems or not.
In terms of, initially we were thinking that if you did a local budget and a merged budget, that one would interfere with the other. You'd have to go through, you have to have a meeting to then rescind your budget.
Yeah.
But that's not the case. Because it's nothing that really has happened before.
I'm a little concerned.
They did
It's going to be tough though. People are going to be confused.
Yeah.
So we have to prepare for that and so people know what they are in fact voting on.
For sure.
I really feel strongly that that's going to take some
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Education.
You mean
Is
if-
this a local budget? Is
Yes.
it local tax rate? Am I only voting on Franklin right now? And what if this doesn't happen? What if it does happen? Or Highgate or Swanton?
But they already did that in Franklin. How'd it work?
Well, they
We
haven't
haven't had the
voted yet.
information meeting or vote yet.
April 16th.
Oh, when are you going to have that vote?
Vote's April 30th, informational meeting is the 16th.
Are you guys still wanting to do that? But you already warned it, so you have to, right?
It's also, theirs is gonna be early enough, and I feel like you have a strong community presence right along through this whole process, so it might be a little easier, but in not some towns, that hasn't been necessarily the case. And they're gonna be happening almost simultaneously with the merged budget, which is just gonna, so we'll have an informational meeting for local and very close to when we have it merged. I don't know, I'm not saying it's impossible, it's just, we have to be really clear about what we're doing and presenting. And
What's Highgate's
I'm
meeting?
done with the meeting.
Swanton's meeting Thursday, and it's, I don't know.
We're meeting tomorrow.
Wednesday, I mean. Huh?
We're meeting tomorrow.
So it'll be curious as to what you all decide. So I know Swanton's meeting on Wednesday, is it? Or
Next
Thursday?
Wednesday, yeah.
So, and see what they decide.
Yeah, I mean.
We decide.
We can either look at it and get another view of the local budgets and have them ready to warn if the delay does happen. Or we can warn them in April so that we have a vote in May. The only thing I would think about is MVU. So if MVU doesn't want to do one and Swanton does want to do one, that's a little weird. I don't know.
But the
how
precedent's already been set.
Absolutely. I'm just thinking, so we may want to have some sort of commonality because Swanton and MVU both are Australian ballot votes. We wouldn't want them to be different dates for warnings. We want to have some coordination there.
Good point.
And
There
we
is a
couldn't do it,
difference.
we couldn't do it for April 30th anyway, because
Oh,
we're,
no.
No.
we don't have
End
our
of-
30
end of
days.
May.
Wow, there's pros and cons to both. Huh?
Yeah, I think the whole idea behind it with Franklin was if something comes out of the legislature that if it resembles what the House version was, where it's an automatic delay for certain routes, which would cover us, we wanted to have something in place to fall back on.
Still could happen, right?
It could.
Not automatic, but chosen. I mean, even if it's chosen, the new board would probably choose to.
Well, I was going to say that just to have it on camera again. I think the possibility is still there that we elect a new board April 30th, and the new board could decide if it's still an option to delay a year, if it's an option.
So that's why we'd want our boards warned. I mean, that's why
Yeah,
we want our budgets
we need our
warned.
budgets ready. Well, either way, the new board is either going to warn a budget vote for May sometime, or the individual boards would warn their budget votes for that same time. So one or the other, not both.
Yeah.
Now, the new board may decide, hey, let's go for it. We're ready enough. Let's do it this year. I think that'd be my vote. Why do this for another year?
Well, I don't know.
I don't know.
Because you got nothing else to do.
Dennis just wants to get off the board.
Dennis just wants to go.
Well,
That's right.
and the other piece of that is that as of, I believe, what's today, the 10th? So
Yeah.
as of Friday, they're expecting the preliminary decision on the lawsuit.
Oh, wow.
And there's an expectation there that at least a couple of issues will be referred to the Supreme Court. So
That's not quick, though.
that's not quick, but that may be a factor to consider as well if you're looking at the benefits of a delay versus not a delay. If you're looking at following through, then you may be in favor of that year delay for that reason.
Yeah.
Being a resident of
And it
Idaho.
won't be my call anyways.
Right.
I will do what the people wish.
Yeah, I guess bottom line, for what it's worth, in Franklin, we decided that there was risk in not having a local budget that was voted upon, so we went that direction.
And you wanted to be first.
We had nothing else to do.
Well, it'll be interesting.
So I do think that as we go through the local, next week we have 4 meetings and the week after, no, then we're done.
Then you're gone.
So we do want to think about, how we would sort of line them up somehow, and communicate what Swanton wants to do when we go to MVU, those kinds of things. Highgate, I think, is in a better position we could do because you don't vote by Australian ballot on your local. So you could decide, well, we're not quite ready to do it now. We'd like to maybe meet early in May and decide, but we want to look at it. I mean, so you have some leeway, but I think Swanton and Highgate, Swanton and MVU will want to coordinate.
Yeah, this is, I mean, truly, if I was thinking ideal world, I just, from what I'm thinking right now, if I were in charge of, what we did, I would say we wouldn't warn a budget, we'd wait, because otherwise we could really muddy the waters on that other vote. That's going to be really critical for accepting.
I think we're getting deep in the mud now.
But I mean, can you imagine if Swanton's voting one budget and then all of a sudden, this is your tax rate on this budget, and all of a sudden, this is your tax rate on this budget?
Vote again?
Yeah.
We're gonna like go.
They're going to be like, no way, why would we vote for that?
Did that.
I'm gonna vote for the smaller one. I'm gonna vote for this big one.
Right, we want that one back.
Yeah, I want that one.
So I don't know.
That's true, that's a risk.
That's a risk.
We'll talk about those in our upcoming board meeting.
Yeah, should we have, you mean the
Local.
transition board?
Yeah,
No,
and then
the
this
local
meeting,
boards.
this board needs to meet, I'm hearing from you that you want to meet again, so we should probably find.
Well, that's the challenge,
Yeah.
was when, because school break comes up soon.
Everybody going somewhere fancy, nice?
Well, and I guess knowing that,
Mothers
I
maybe.
guess knowing that we're handing off our work in progress to the next board, I think we've got a pretty good start, and I know that our business department is going to continue working on it.
Yeah, I guess if it's mostly just, getting this tidied up, unless people have like real concerns about
Right.
cutting lines or moving things around, I don't know what we accomplish at another meeting. If it's just
That was gonna be my question, I guess
That's
we
what
would
I
need some more
agree.
direction
Right.
so that we can come back with something worthwhile.
And we don't have
I think we'll
that.
have a Saturday meeting, right?
We still have the Saturday, and then Monday.
So that would be my vote, is that we
Articles.
call it a good ride and we hang it up. We
I
move
don't think
on.
we're allowed to hang it up.
Well, this board, that's our only
In
job.
case something
is-
comes up, right?
Our-
Something might come up about the budget. I'd hate to disband.
Right.
I don't think we have to schedule a meeting, but
Guess
I
we're.
mean,
don't
we
think
already
we should
have
cancel.
2 informational meetings. If something came up, we could fit something in around those.
Yeah,
Before or
something.
after.
Yeah, I
I
don't
would
think
say
we
after
disband
a meeting
until
like
the
that would
other
be-
board is.
Exactly.
seated anyway.
So we don't need to schedule a meeting, but yeah, thank you. We do have a closing date of the next board,
Right.
April 30th. Not that I'm counting.
So in that case, our future meeting dates are our informational meeting for MVSD, which will be informational meeting on the Warren vote on April 30th. Will be April 15th here in this library at MVU at 6 p.m. And our next possible MVSD or Franklin Northwest Supervisor Union Board, depends on how things go, will be May 1st at 6 p.m. in Highgate Library.
We also have a February 20.
April.
May 1st?
Yeah, the Saturday.
26th,
Saturday morning.
right?
April 27th, I think.
I'm sorry.
7th, Saturday, 10
10 a.m.
10
10 a.m.
a.m.
right
Also
here.
Right here.
That's the second informational meeting for the.
So the first meeting is on Monday,
15th and
the
6 o'clock.
15th, tax day. And the second
Back in
one
time.
is
When we
May
had more
20,
time.
Saturday, May
Yes.
27th at 10
What
a.m.
was the May
in
1st meeting
Highgate.
again?
May 1st,
May 1st.
it's either MVSD or it most likely be MVSD.
Yeah.
That'll be our first initial board meeting.
Yeah, what is May 1st?
I just asked that question.
We were all just saying that. May 1st will likely be the first meeting of the elected
The
board.
elected board.
Okay, thank you.
So anyway,
That's it.
Yeah, but it's the 27th, that's the info
Informational meeting, yes.
at 10.
4:15, 6 o'clock.
What's the 4th? Oh,
What?
April 15th.
Oh, yeah, April 15th.
Okay, I was
6
like,
o'clock.
what?
That's our
Come
information.
on, Chris, work with me.
Yeah, it's Chris. Of course it's Chris.
Oh, that's interesting. 'Cause Go ahead.
I was gonna say, just because the 15th is on Monday, those are my bad days, so there's a good chance I won't
Right.
be here for a good chunk of that if I do make it.
That
Will
wasn't
you be able to come
intentional.
Saturday?
What's that?
Will you be able to come
Yeah, oh yeah,
Saturday?
Saturday one should be.
What kind of help would you like from us?
Actually, Julie put together the slideshow. I just saw it right before this meeting, so I don't think much, but
Looks good.
I'll let you know if it changes.
Okay, we'll be here.
I'll be sending it to Chris and whoever wants to look at it. I did put a slide at the end before questions where maybe board members, whoever comes, could speak to, the articles and what's important to them, and maybe, why, equal representation was really important to me, so that's why, just any comments you might want to make before, because I think that might be important to the communities, depending on who comes.
I would like to go on record of saying that equal representation, I agreed with that here, and I voted for those, and I agree in principle with some of the idea about not equal, but in practicality for our communities to work together, then we definitely need equal. Just on record.
We should all be there.
Yeah,
What was that, Steve?
We should all be there.
on record. Oh, we should all be there. Sorry.
Okay, with that, look for a motion to adjourn at 8:15.
Motion.
Second.
I know Laura looked a little bit confused. You still have some questions as far as direction?
I guess I'm not clear if we can move things around now or if we're supposed to wait. As long as we're not changing anything, we're just reallocating things to where like the different object number, or if you want us, same bottom line, or if you prefer that we now leave it as is and wait until that new board sees it and then move
Well,
forward.
I think the local boards may still be doing some work, and so we didn't approve or fix the number
So you're thinking
So-
we're gonna update those numbers to
so that
this?
the new board has the most recent information that may result from.
So if I had a principal that wanted to put a new position in, you guys are okay with that?
No.
I think we should be aware of the changes. I'm not saying that we should prevent you from doing them, but I don't know.
If you're talking about the changes that you and I talked about, then I'm okay with that. Just moving
That's
things
just
around.
reallocating. I'm saying,
Right.
recently this week we've had things come up where I think that there's some confusion around if it's still actually a work in progress or if we're kind of drawing that line in the sand that, I just want to make sure we're doing the right thing. I
I've
think
tried to say it's a soft, we're kind of like, it's middle of April, so we'd be done.
given
you
the
know.
situation with the different versions and proposals, I just want to make sure that everyone understands what we're doing and
The things I was talking to Laura about were like telephone expenses and, kind of minimal basically, and just moving things around. And she was saying, yeah, we're going to move that. But if you're talking about certain things about, clientele or supervision and stuff like that, then no, I don't think that I'm okay with that and without everybody else's approval.
I would ask this, though. I do think, and it's making me recall this, thank you, and that is, I'm not sure of principals in other areas, but I'm not so sure that the Swanton principal thought that we were done with budgeting. We never made it that there was, I think we did to some extent, we agreed, but I would like to give that principal a chance if there's something that she would like to look at least, to at least hear that voice. I don't know if Highgate had the same.
We haven't drawn a line in the sand yet. So,
Right.
However, I would like to preserve the spirit of what we've done here tonight with all the calculations and what we think taxpayers can bear, so.
Yeah.
And don't forget, the software system has changed. It's superintendent's office that they're still moving stuff around. So, I understand that. I've been through that. So they're still cleaning things up, but as to where things are going to be coded, and if you have an issue with that, that should be addressed. I agree with that.
So I guess I don't know if that gives you a firm direction.
Laura's done a
It
great
sounds
job.
like
She's done a
there
great
are
job.
schools that are still looking at the budget, and it really is the elected board that has the final say. So, I mean, we have a draft here, and if any major differences were highlighted and brought to the elected board, I think that would give the individual schools a reasonable ability to make sure they have what they need in there. Does that sound?
And that's what I was saying. If there's major change, I mean, they should be noted. It's not just a categorical change. They should be noted, and then, because I think a lot of you guys are going to be on the next board anyway, so it'll just, you guys will see them in the future.
But again, they're still coding things to the right spots.
Yeah, I think
They're working.
Those are okay with. I think any like
they're working
adding, or subtracting things like that. Should be noted.
Mostly subtracting, hopefully.
Is that clear?
It sounds like we don't necessarily need to, be on top of it.
No,
as long as you're good at keeping records. And
I think they've got
changed.
Julie, is that good with you?
That variance.
Yeah, I'm trying to take minutes.
Oh.
I have tried to say to the prime, we're meeting tomorrow, and we're going to talk about this. I'm going to say, look, if you're looking at your bottom line budget and you want to trade in 3 positions here for a position there, and it's about the same amount of money,
right.
That's one thing. If we're talking about, you know what, I want to add 5 teachers, nobody's talking about that. But it's something major, then that would be a very different conversation.
Yeah.
And I think that what I'm hearing from you is moving things within the budget to realign or make small changes as things come up, like, oh, we over budgeted here or we under budgeted there. That's one thing. As long as the new board, if any big changes occur, we want that very clearly noted for the new board and the rationale for it. And
That's
so
good.
it sounds as if you're not going to meet again unless there's a reason to.
Right.
Okay.
It's good to go.
We'll have to meet just to approve our minutes.
All right.
Well, you did approve the minutes.
David didn't. Oh, no. that's
No,
right,
we did,
did.
based on that change.
Okay.
Usually you're the one reminding me.
Yeah, just out on that one.
So you guys made the motion and everything?
Yeah, so now the discussion's done. All those in favor of adjourning at 8:21, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. We are adjourned.
Thank you.